Okay, guys, it's spooky season. Let's talk about the diabetes monster. And is it coming for you? Also, going to talk about two things to defend against the diabetes monster. So, is it coming for you? Bottom line, yes, it's coming for all of us, right? If we don't do the right things and do the bad things, it can happen. Also, genetics does play a role in your genetics. Just look at your family history and you'll know what your genetics are there. Also, just being mindful, even if you're like, well, everyone in my family ate terrible and nobody got diabetes, there's always the first one, right? So we always need to be on guard and doing things to prevent against developing diabetes. So I'm sure you all can guess what the basics are, right? Eat right, eat healthy, and exercise. But what exactly? So I'm going to give you two things to work on this. First one is diet. So in regards to that, what specifically? One thing I want you to do is increase your protein. So how do we figure out how much protein we need? If you go online to MD Calc, and you can even just Google ideal body weight, MD Calc, figure that out. Don't think about that number anymore than I'm trying to figure out what my protein needs are, right? Because you're going to see that number and you're going to go, maybe I could never, or I don't want to, etc. So that number is not a target we're shooting for your weight. That's not the purpose of this. But your protein needs on a daily basis are 1 gram per pound of ideal body weight. So for me, that comes out to about 105 grams of protein. So then, of course, dividing that out by how many meals or even snacks am I having in a day, how much do I need to get per meal? Most people, right, it's going to be shooting for 30 to 40 grams of protein per meal. If you're having some protein-rich snacks, that can also help you get to that goal. Don't focus so much on elimination. I think that's everybody's first thing. Okay, so maybe more than two things. But don't focus so much on elimination. That will come. Let's get your protein up. Let's get you satisfied during your meals. Curb some of these cravings, and then we can work on elimination. Then we can work on getting rid of processed carbs. Okay, so that's kind of a tease for step 1B, right? Elimination of processed. Notice I'm saying processed carbs. I'm not telling you to get rid of your potatoes or your corn or your green beans. Processed carbs, so your breads, your rices, your pastas. And I know everybody's going, those are all the good things, but there's other ways that we can figure out how to eat well and in a satisfying way that we're not leaning to or relying on those processed carbs. But key step number 1 is getting our protein requirements. So boosting that protein intake so that we are feeling full, we're feeling satisfied, we're not hangry, and getting those on a regular basis and regular intervals. Depending on the person, might depend on where you get your heavier meals. Some people do intermittent fasting. If that works for you, great. It does not work for me. I tank my metabolism if I try and do that, because most people eliminate breakfast. But what I have found is really shifting towards a good breakfast, a good midday meal, and then having more of a light snacky something for dinner. And this isn't chips that I'm going for, right? This would be maybe a little bit of fruit with nuts or peanut butter or things like that. Just something light and easy that's not super heavy. And that has really been helpful for me. I find I sleep better if I am not eating a super heavy meal at the end of the day. If your schedule doesn't really allow for that type of pattern and you are having to eat a larger meal at the end of the day to get your calories, doing your best to do it earlier, giving yourself at least a few hours before bedtime, because digestion takes a couple hours, right? So you're digesting, you're getting all that in, and all that energy is kind of hitting your system, right, to help you do things, but we're not doing anything. We're just going to bed. So if you can do it at least a few hours before bed, that can be helpful. So just thinking about it, right? The first thing is planning. Got a plan. So kind of sitting down and developing a plan initially for how we're going to do this. We're not just going to try and jump in and do it seat of our pants and be successful. The second thing is exercise, right? So I told you common sense, but let's talk about how to do it for real. So really strength training. No, I'm not trying to turn you into a bodybuilder. I know you're like, oh my gosh, she's telling me to get my protein. She's telling me to do strength training. She's trying to turn me into Arnold Schwarzenegger. No, that's not what we're trying to do. So strength training, and I'm going to kind of list these in what I think is kind of best to maybe not so great. So body weight is always great, right? That's accessible. You have your body all the time. You've got this meat suit and what it weighs. So doing body weight strength training. The other thing is resistance bands can be great. Hand weights, those can also be great. You can use weight machines for strength training. The other thing that's kind of a resistance type training would be getting into some water, getting into a pool and doing that. A lot of people like cardio, and cardio is fun, right? It's easy and it's fun. Strength training is easy and fun too. And if you're like, well, I really only have access to the elliptical machine in my house or the treadmill, you can definitely use those for strength training, right? We can set up the incline on the treadmill to give some resistance and work at a slower pace. On the elliptical, you can turn up that resistance and we're working at a slower pace, making those muscles do more. So you definitely can be creative with those cardio machines to do some resistance. And then again, your body weight. So you can do body weight exercises. I never like to tell people specifically like do this exact exercise because we're all gonna have different preferences, even just with our body structure and how it functions, different things that are not going to be comfortable and other exercises that will be. So it's really just playing with it, finding out what works for you, trying different things. Internet is great, right? You can find all kinds of things. Pinterest has exercises. YouTube has different exercises. Even on things like Instagram, you can find different types of exercises. Go to your library and check out different exercise videos. So lots of resources that are free that don't cost you a ton, but you want to do some strength training. So, I said I kind of listed those strength training things from like kind of what I would consider like the best to not so great. So the thing with doing strengthening exercises using a machine or in the pool, they can be easier on your joints, particularly pool exercise, but you're not loading the body as much. So the quality of muscle that you're building is not going to be so great. The other thing is, the bones don't get as much benefit from that as they do from things where we're kind of using gravity and a weight on top of that. So when we think about, the quality of muscle that we're building and also getting more bang for buck, and I'm a huge fan of 2-for-1 deals, and strengthening our bones as well, is doing those things where we're kind of more of in an upright posture, or like gravity is kind of working with the exercise that we're doing. Although at some point in the exercise, you probably will feel like gravity's working against you. The other thing is this doesn't have to be huge, right? You don't have to go and do this for an hour doing strength training, weight training. If you can do this for 15 minutes, 2 to 3 days a week consistently, you're going to have awesome results. And maybe to start, you're only doing 5 minutes, and maybe you're only doing it 1 to 2 days a week, just to build that routine, get your brain and your body in the habit of this, getting used to this. And then you just kind of build from there. And maybe it gets exciting because you start to see how much more you can do and what all, your body is growing and developing in, and you see the changes, you see the inches, you see the endurance. I had a patient once who hadn't lost any weight, was a bit frustrated with that, but found that they could go and do things with the family that they would not have been able to do a month before. And they were so focused on the weight that they missed, this big thing. I'm like, that's amazing. That's amazing. So those are the kind of goals you want to strive for, is how is my function improving? How is my energy improving? Because those are all telltale signs that your body is doing better. So, maybe throw your scale out, loan it to a friend, bury it in the yard, get rid of it. Let's not focus on the scale. But doing these things, building good quality muscle, goes a long way to helping control blood sugars, because our muscles are huge in controlling blood sugars. So that's why we want to focus on getting our protein in, building strong muscles, right? So we're giving our body the building blocks, and then we're using those building blocks to build those good quality muscles. And that is going to help our body to control our blood sugar, our insulin levels, other hormones in the body, all of these wonderful things. So if you can focus on just adding these things, let's not worry so much about elimination, but let's add in some good things, and then just let those good things push out the bad things. You will be well on your way to warding off the diabetes monster and its pursuit of you. All right, guys, this is Dr. Kate Ohl, your friendly neighborhood family medicine doc, and I hope you have an awesome rest of your day.